Okay, everybody. So in this video, we're talking about the short answer questions portion of the exam. Now, again, some of these exams that you take may have all three portions: the identify, define, the short answer, and the essay. Some may only have one of those components. Some of them may be multiple choice. You will obviously know based on your study guide, the class reviews, things like that, what this is going to look like. So I'm just trying to cover all my bases in terms of opportunities that you may find yourself dealing with when it comes to taking some of these exams. So usually, you have 2 to 3 of these that you need to answer. Sometimes they're 150 words or less. Sometimes they're 300 words or less. They don't generally go over that, because once you start to go over that, you start to get into essay length, and generally speaking, it's kind of redundant, especially if you have an essay. But again, pay attention to the question. So, for example, if you're in a psych class and it asks you to describe the Schrodinger's cat experiment, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it, but basically, real quick, Schrodinger's cat, there's a box, there's a cat in the box. As long as the cat is in the box, the cat could be alive, dead, whatever. But as soon as you lift the box up, you're immediately aware of the fact that the cat is dead or alive. So endless possibilities with the cat inside the box. Only one possible outcome if you look in the box. I apologize if that's confusing. But anyway, so if it's asking you to discuss the merit of that case, or, how worthwhile it is, or something like that, then you should answer very directly and very concisely, meaning short but informative. So you want to be concise, be informative, echo language in question. So you should be able to look at your answer and be able to tell what the question is. So there should be enough of the question in your response that there is no confusion over which one this is an answer to. So make sure, if it was about that, you talked about Schrodinger, you talk about the experiment, you give a brief definition of the experiment, you mention the fact that hypothetically cats were used, that kind of a thing. But don't use a lot of extra flowery language. Subject, verb, object. Subject, verb, object. Subject, verb, object. Just write simple sentences that are informative and get what you need to get out there. Don't repeat yourself. Don't add in extra commentary or anything like that. Think about this. You are just there to answer this one question and move on to the next thing, all right? Because if you find yourself over-investing in one question too much, then you're going to find yourself in a time crunch. So however much time you have, and depending on the questions, I would try and set a time limit. I doubt you'll be able to have your phones out or anything, but you should be able to wear a watch. But think of it in terms of, okay, if I have 1 hour to answer 5 identify, define questions, 2 short answer questions, and an essay question. Well, the essay question is going to take the longest. So you better budget half your time for that. So Then if you have to do 2 essay questions, you probably want to budget the next amount for that. So you got 30 minutes left, maybe 7.5 minutes a question. And then leave yourself 3 minutes each for the 5 identification things that are basically a sentence or 2. So, 15 for the identification definition, 15 for the short answer questions, 30 for the essay. And then if you have time left over, you can always go back. But be aware of what your time situation is, because I can't tell you how many times I've watched students get to the end of the time and they are just starting on the essay. So think about it in terms of how long is it realistically going to take you, as well as which ones of these are worth the most points. Because usually people just start at the beginning and then work their way through to the end. I would suggest work on the stuff that is worth the most, that takes the longest, and then move forward from there. So I would actually, if it's identification, short answer, essay, I would do the whole test backwards. I would do essay, short answer, identification. Because if you don't get to one identification question, it's not going to hurt you in the long run nearly as much as if you don't get a short answer or an essay question done. Again, I'm going to say use class language. So if there's terminology or wording that your classmates, your professor, your readings, things like that have used, and that it's something that's been repeated multiple times, then by all means, make sure you use those similar terminology, those similar phrases, sentence constructions, those kind of things that you would deal with if you were sitting in class or commenting on the discussion board. Mimic that language here, because that's the language that your professor is the most familiar with, because it's the one they use on a regular basis. And finally, this is just a hint. Look to other sections to help. So take a look at what the essay questions are. Take a look at the terms that they're asking you to identify or define. See if there is some cross-pollination there. Can you use any aspects of the questions for the essays or the terms they're asking you to define in your own answer? The more you can use other components of the test, what the professor thinks are important, if you can link those together, the stronger your your exam is going to be, because it shows that you can connect across different types of questions. So it shows how well-rounded your knowledge is of the class. So again, for short answer portions of the exam, pay attention to the question, really, really read it and absorb what it's asking you to do, as well as the language that it's using. Be concise, meaning make sure that you're not long-winded in your answers. It's just, this is what subject, verb, object, simple sentences. Be informative, echo the language in the question. Use language that you would use in class. So if there's terminology you used in class or on discussion boards, revisit that. And look to the other sections for help in crossing over and showing that you have a well-rounded knowledge of the class. Again, make sure that you're paying attention to word count here and that you aren't being overly wordy or repetitive, because these are supposed to be quick, informative answers. All right, everybody. I will see you in the next video for a brief look at identification questions. Okay? Have a good one.